reporting is expensive and people don't want to pay for it. People got used to like not paying for things.
Yeah, that's so true. Nobody really understood the internet. Nobody, I think, understood that it was going to be taking over the world. And it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle, right?
And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast for people who would never complain about the news being boring because they've lived through exciting news times and have the standing weekly appointment with a therapist to show for it. Our guest today is an award-winning journalist, a #1 New York Times bestselling author, the writer of the newsletter Wake Up Call, and the host of the iHeart podcast Next Question with Katie Couric. Well, okay, that gave it away. Please welcome to the pod, Katie Couric. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be with you both. And thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
Katie, in honor of your newsletter, Wake Up Call, which I love and read every morning while I'm making my instant coffee because I've become so lazy.
Bless you. But I can't deal with the instant coffee, honey. We got to change that. I'm going to send you a Couric, not to be confused with Couric, but you cannot do instant coffee. I'm sorry, Alyssa. I will not allow it.
Blue Bottle has a good version, but that said, while I'm stirring, I'm scrolling my Wake Up Call, and we would love to know what is on your mind this morning. Is it more loose bolts on the Boeing 737 MAX 9? I don't know, maybe talking to Kamala Harris? What's on your mind, Katie?
Oh, what's on my mind is my interview with Kamala Harris, because it was pretty exciting to be able to do that. Not working for a major news network, having her agree to do an interview with me for a podcast, for our newsletter, and for my social media audience. So we were very absorbed with pushing that out this morning. Normally, my podcast drops on a Thursday, but we were like, what are we waiting for? This is insane. We need to push this out to the world now. We thought a lot of people were going to be interested in the campaign because of the New Hampshire primary. And but one of our links wasn't working for a period of time. So I was apoplectic for a nanosecond this morning, as some friends of mine were like, we tried to click on the Kamala interview and it wasn't working. And of course, my hair was on fire. We fixed it. It was a website problem. All is well in the world, Alyssa.
Katie,
but that's been on my mind.
Okay, we have to hit the pause button on this for a second because you're Katie fucking Couric. So like I would assume that people take your phone calls, that when they're like, Katie wants to interview you, Vice President Harris, that people say, when and how long does she need us for? Did you go back to the White House for it? Did you go to NABOBs? Did you? Does that ever get old?
No, it was actually really, well, we were in the old executive office building, Eisenhower executive office building, it's called now, the EEOB versus the EEOC. And we took the train because there was bad weather in DC on Friday, and we didn't want to risk having a train schedule change on us. So I went with my producer, who's my senior producer, who really digs in and helps me with all my interviews, Courtney Litz. And then we also brought Adriana Fazio, who's another producer who works very closely with me. So we headed down there. It was really fun. It felt like the old days. We had a really great crew, Mary Agnet, who works at our company, who does a lot of shooting and editing for us. So it was very exciting to be there. It was, it brought back a lot of memories of getting a half hour to talk with a major political figure and really trying to figure out what issues you wanted to tackle, how much you could get into that short period of time in a wide-ranging interview. And, I love the process of coming up with really smart, good questions. So I talked to my friend Brian Goldsmith, who's like, I call him Brianpedia. He's a political brain like no other. And he helped me a lot. We worked very closely for my Sarah Palin interview back in the day. And he and I are good friends. So I reached out to him because, he's the kind of person who follows every step and nuance of what's going on in politics. And so it was really fun. And I really enjoyed talking to her. And tackling all these issues from immigration to Israel and Gaza to what's going on with reproductive rights to politics to their really historically low approval ratings, despite the fact that they've, things are going pretty well in terms of the economy. And, I could have spent another hour with her, but alas, alack, she didn't have the time.
Yeah, she seems pretty busy this week. Katie, do you and Sarah Palin stay in touch? You guys
No,
play pickleball?
Yeah. Yeah, you betcha. No, we don't. We don't. I kind of have mixed feelings about that interview because you'd have to have ice water running through your veins if you didn't feel some empathy for her. I think she just was not ready for prime time. I thought it was such a cynical choice by the McCain campaign to try to capitalize on Hillary Clinton's popularity. And I don't, she and I are not friends. I have never spoken to her since that interview. I know she's written about it. She called me the perky one, like that was going to get back at me. I was like, ooh.
Katie, it's not like the questions you asked her were gotcha. You asked her what she read.
I know. It's so funny, looking back on that I guess in a way that encapsulated her lack of intellectual curiosity. But the interview, there were so many more questions in that were really thought out, that were designed to gauge her ability to be a critical thinker, her level of accumulated knowledge. And I think it's sort of funny that was the soundbite heard around the world. And it's just interesting because if you go back and listen to that whole interview, they weren't gotcha questions, but they were questions that required a certain facility with policy, right? With public policy that I think she simply didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because we're kind of getting into Veep stakes talk now with the presumptive nominee Donald Trump, and I keep.
Wait, can we just take a moment? What the fuck?
Yes,
I know.
Katie. What the fuck?
I think there's just so many layers of what the fuck, too. Like the way that we are still choosing candidates based on the 8th whitest, 2.3% of the people in the 8th whitest state in the country voting. And then a tiny state people often forget about voting second. And we're like, all right, it's all done.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, Erin. It feels so bizarre and antiquated, and I don't know, you're right, it's WTF on so many levels.
Nobody would design a system from the ground up to be this. If you're sitting around with a bunch of people and you're like, let's design a good way to choose a candidate for a diverse, huge geographic democracy, we wouldn't come up with what we're doing. But as we're talking about the VP race, one point of contention among coworkers at Crooked is like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? My stance is that I don't think that Republicans, and especially Donald Trump, learned anything from the Sarah Palin pick. Do you think that Donald Trump is going to go with somebody who looks like a Fox News anchor or Miss America contestant? Or do you think he's going to go with somebody primarily based on their policy acumen?
I think the former, but I'm not sure it's going to be a Fox News anchor type. I think whoever it is must pledge complete and utter fealty to Donald J. Trump. I think what he has learned is from picking someone like Mike Pence, who, however you feel about his politics, has a certain modicum of integrity and respect for American values and the Constitution. I think that he is going to require someone who has respect for one person, and that's Donald Trump.
You mean like Elise Stefanik, who he can call Stepphonic, and she'll still defend him?
Yes, I think Elise Stefanik is a good candidate. I think that Tim Scott maybe, I don't know about you all, but that whole scene with him standing behind him, someone was criticizing his teeth to gum ratio. And I was like, hey, back off. As someone who has a very gummy smile, that is hitting below the belt. But this idea that, I guess there's some bad blood between Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. Like I was talking to my friend Brian, my aforementioned friend Brian Goldsmith. We did a quick Instagram live. I was in my pajamas at 11 o'clock at night, just kind of wrapping up the New Hampshire primary. And I guess Nikki Haley didn't call Tim Scott after he dropped out of the race, which is kind of bad form and sort of politics 101. So there must be some bad blood.
But Katie, didn't she appoint him to the U.S. Senate?
She did. And, in fact, as Trump mentioned that in his speech last night, and he's like, you must really hate her. I mean, it is just like so fourth grade out there. It is just so bizarre.
Well, and then the response that was like, but no, I just love you more, or I like you more. It was like,
cringe.
Oh, are you competing for half of his best friend necklace? Like he's only got one out. You all remember best friend necklaces and how it was a little bit of a blood sport to like be the other half. I feel like there is a humiliation cycle that Donald Trump puts people through. And it's very predictable, but it goes at different speeds. So we have the like Kevin McCarthy, my Kevin humiliation cycle, where people are forced to like humble themselves in front of Trump, do whatever he wants. And then when Trump is done using them, he's like, who was that? I don't even know who that was.
Back to Bakersfield for you, my Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. And Kevin's just kind of got these sour grapes that are, admittedly funny, but none of these people, I think, that are going through the humiliation cycle with him, are willing to admit that they're going through it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, it's so bizarre. I guess you really want to hold on to power to have to engage in that kind of public display of humiliation and insult. And I don't know. The world is so strange, isn't it, ladies?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even know. But, I have been trying to spend a little more time understanding why people are supporting Donald Trump. And I don't know if that's something that you all think about. I mean, I actually need to talk to more Trump voters. Mm-hmm. I think there are a lot of things. I think it's a confluence of many factors. And again, I'm not a political anthropologist, so this is just me riffing on and theorizing on what is happening. We had dinner with some friends last night, some really super smart people. And I was saying that I thought income inequality was actually at the root of so much of this. The fact that people at the top of the food chain are making so much money. And then people are struggling. The middle class has cratered. People are worried about their kids and their standard of living, and if they're going to be able to have the middle class life that maybe they did. I think there is a lot of white displacement going on with, whites, and by 2044 will be the minority race in this country. So I think there's a lot of discomfort about this innate superiority, whether acknowledged or not, that a lot of white Americans feel. But I think class resentment is such a strong, visceral motivator and really shapes how people feel about themselves and others. I don't know if you've ever resented people, but
constantly.
Obviously.
It's
real.
almost like it's bile, that you really resent. And as I was talking to a friend, and she was saying, well, he's not going to fix these problems, but I think he's just a vessel for their anger and grievance.
But
and
isn't
resentment.
it interesting, Katie, though, so I watched a couple of the focus groups for folks in New Hampshire, and it's exactly what you're saying, right? They're like, okay, here's the problem. I don't like Trump, but I need to keep my job. And I don't like Trump, but financially I did a little bit better, not a lot better, a little bit better when he was president. And I think that what you're saying makes so much sense. But at the same time, he may be the vessel, but they also willfully ignore the fact that he cheats the people who have worked for him. He doesn't pay his bills. He is like
that he doesn't care about them.
He doesn't care about them. Like that is the thing that I think is so confounding. Is like you can't watch any news coverage and come away. You can't even watch Fox News and not come away with the fact like Donald Trump doesn't really care about his supporters. Like even his most high profile supporters, he can't pronounce their names wrong. He says the wrong things about them. So I just think it's like such an interesting thing because I do think that what you're saying is totally right, but I think that it is so complicated that they don't see that he really doesn't care about them, that they're just a means to an end.
And why do you think they don't see that? I think it's because of the media that they consume and and we're all guilty of this, the sort of bubbles that we're living in, and we're getting affirmation, not information. And I think perhaps a lot of voters aren't exposed to anything but rah Trump material, right?
It's probably true, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also think, so I'm from I'm from Western Wisconsin, which was one of the deciding regions of the whole country in 2016, and stayed solidly Trumpy after going for Obama twice. So weird part of the country. Honestly, I think that some of it is unspoken and unspeakable and sort of underneath the surface. And I keep thinking back to that Adam Serwer piece, "The Cruelty is the Point," which gets quoted a lot now. I think that at part of the resentment is not necessarily, I think that there are people in this country who have given up on themselves, who are like, it is not happening for me. But what can happen is me seeing it getting stuck to the people that I don't like. Like, it's not really about them advancing or them getting anything. It's about the people that they don't like suffering. And it doesn't really matter to them if they also suffer a little bit, as long as the people that they don't like are also suffering and they're doing it publicly. That's why I think when I watch Morning Joe or whatever, every time they're sort of aghast that Donald Trump did something or said something, it's like his supporters love that. They love it when the political class is uncomfortable. They love it when people sitting in studios in New York City or Los Angeles are uncomfortable by what he did. It's about kind of bully. It's like seeing the people you want to see bullied being bullied.
That's a good point, but it's also like what is even deeper than that has caused people to feel so abandoned and angry and resentful that would make them enjoy that kind of retribution, right?
No, honestly, it's a great question, and I think that there are going to be incredible books written about it as we move deeper into the future.
But I feel like the media we get served up. I wish maybe some of the major networks or that they would open bureaus up in the middle of the country in some of these smaller places, because I don't think we hear enough from people who are different than we are. And, when we do kind of explore how they're thinking, whether it's in a focus group, it's almost like animals in a zoo, that we feel somehow alienated from this huge swath of the country. And it's just it feels like it's getting, more and more polarized. And I don't know the answer, but I think that would help somehow to not have all the news be from New York and Washington,
Well,
Totally.
Katie, I live outside of Albany. And so my local news is Albany and I watch it every night. And I think if more large media, mainstream media, I think if politicians paid more attention to their local news, like one of the biggest stories up here is that there's not broadband and people can't call 911. That's like a real fucking problem for people. And it's like it feels like every election, every political race, whether it's become nationalized, right? So like here, they're talking in state assembly races about whether we should aid Ukraine. And it's like, what on earth is going on? It's made people hyper aware of what's happening in the world and they have opinions on it and they're voting on it, but they don't have a deep enough sense, I think, of what could really improve their lives at the local level.
Right. And maybe some of that is the coverage. Do you find that the Albany news does cover local issues in a way that would
all local issues and
that would motivate voters.
Like I watch it, Katie. I had COVID for a week, and all I did was watch the local news and send them emails. I was like, hey,
you're one of those people.
Oh, Katie, 100%. I was like, hey, I just want you to know that like your climate change coverage is really banging this week, and I'm like really proud that you're doing this. And
That's so nice.
The weatherman wrote me back, and he's like, I can promise you that most of the emails I get when I cover climate change are not positive. But like all of the things, I was mad when I was done watching the news every night. I was like, what do you mean they still don't have broadband up north? Like, what do you mean they can't get these little things? And so I just think that like, even for me, it's helped me put a lot of things in perspective about,
Well, the problem is, and I don't mean to be like the perpetual buzzkill here, but
please,
local news. I mean, I was just talking to the head of Huffington Post about maybe collaborating on some things with them. And, we were just, she worked in local newspapers. I mean, they're shuttering left and right. That's a huge problem. There are a lot of efforts underway. The MacArthur Foundation has one. The Texas Tribune is trying to seed local reporters report for America. And, and we were bemoaning the fact if every day we open up our email and see another news organization getting slashed, whether it's the LA Times or Sports Illustrated or some of the major networks downsizing significantly. And, and also the hatred that people seem to have for the media. It's just so, I think, misplaced. And I don't know, you guys, it just feels like a hot mess right now. So I don't know. I wish we could do something about all these things. And I'm at a loss.
I think I've noticed that as well. Like my hometown newspaper is now mostly just like press releases reprinted with
and obituaries.
Yeah. And obituaries and court appearance notifications and whatever, like, foreclosure sales. And I almost think the news and media, during I was in New York working in digital media during the like boom years of blogging. And everyone was like, okay, we're going to make so much money off this. This is going to bring in so much money. And it became a thing that people bought up and pursued as like an asset to make money. And, it's not like reporting is expensive. And people don't want to pay for it. People got used to like not paying for things.
Yeah, that's so true, Erin, because I was talking to Danielle, the person from Huffington Post, and, we were talking, for people who wanted to go into journalism now, how would they even approach it? And she was saying a lot of mistakes were made along the way. And she did say the first was giving content away for free. Yeah. Because nobody really understood the internet. Nobody, I think, understood that it was going to be taking over the world. And it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle, right? People get things for free. They're not going to pay for it.
I mean, we take a look at like, billionaires buying up media properties expecting to make a profit and then being like, oh, this is not profitable, and selling it to a private equity firm who basically strips it down and sucks all the profit out of it and then just leaves it an empty shell of what it was. And that happens over and over again. And I think I used to work at the Daily Beast, and one thing about that place is that it seems like it is treated as like Barry Diller's expensive pet. Like he knows that it's not gonna like make him money, but he's like, oh, little Fluffy, we love you.
God bless Barry Diller. Good for him. They should all treat it like expensive pets.
Right. The media is not, owning a media outlet is not a way to make money. It is a way to have an expensive pet.
Well, I guess obviously everyone's gonna have to figure out a new business model. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like and how important this is for Americans to preserve journalism. And it'll be interesting to see how Mark Thompson reimagines CNN, for example, as more of a digital, content service. And I don't know, you guys. And there's just so much content. Yeah. It's funny because I think back when I did the Today Show. So I was on that show from 91 to 2006. There were gatekeepers. Obviously, the media landscape left a lot of people out, but it also there was a finite amount of content that you could look to.
And it was vetted. It was like vetted to an extent.
Yes,
Right.
it was vetted, I think, to a large extent. You know, we were very careful about what we said on the air. And by the way, we never gave our opinions about stuff.
Do you feel liberated
we said what
now?
was happening and we asked questions. Yes and no. I mean, I think there are too many people with opinions without portfolio out there.
Yep.
You know, they're not experts and they just blab about anything to fill the airtime or to seem smart. And they really don't know what the hell they're talking about. So, you know, I think I sometimes long for the days when you reported what was happening and then perhaps you went to someone who had expertise in an area and maybe even people who had expertise who disagreed. And there was a clear delineation between someone reporting what was happening and someone opining on those events.
Yeah, mission creep of the term analysis.
Yeah.
I think really.
Well, everyone's a commentator now. They're, you know.
Yeah, right. Well, I feel like
Us too.
it also is like everybody in hard news wants to be Jon Stewart, and every comedian wants to be taken seriously as someone who is a truth teller. And it's like it's become this sort of nobody's either thing, and it's a little bit it's demoralizing. Okay, Katie. You've been covering the news for many years. We started doing a segment recently on this show called "Does This Stupid Bullshit Matter?" where we take a story that is like easy to understand and seems maybe inconsequential, but perhaps there's something deeper below it. Has there ever been a time in your career when you had to give a lot of air to a story that you considered to be stupid bullshit? And what was the story?
I mean, there were a lot of things I had to give time to that I don't know if I thought they were stupid bullshit, but I definitely felt it was overkill and a pure ratings ploy. I did feel that. I wrote about this in my book, you guys, where I was talking about Lacey Peterson. Yes. And that was, I mean, interesting. There's a whole sub layer to this about pretty white girls getting so much attention when something awful happens. But that story captivated the country, right? Because it was sort of a whodunit. She was pregnant. It was just heartbreaking and tragic. And I felt that we were milking that story to a point that it was really overkill. These are both bad words to use, I guess. But anyway, so I think there were times professionally where I just felt like we did stories over and over again just because they were, you know, big ratings grabbers. Gosh, I don't know if I can. There are so many, but I can't think of any more right now.
Well, there's an epilogue to the Peterson
seriously, he's
story now because Innocence Project. Yeah, it's pretty.
So a friend of mine runs the Innocence Project in New York. You know, when you get to be my age, you know everyone. So I called her and I said I'd love to do an interview about this case. And so I reached out. They're not doing it. It's the LA Innocence Project people. And they wrote back and said they weren't doing any interviews right now. But I think if it's my understanding that they're exploring some DNA evidence that wasn't available. But honestly, all signs point to Scott Peterson did this. So it will be fascinating if they even determine the case is worth pursuing, you know, giving resources to.
Well, I hope that you get that interview when
seriously.
you start to do press. That'll be super
Well, I
fascinating.
think there's a documentary that's somebody is doing on this whole case and probably will be doing, if they're allowed, a prison interview with Scott Peterson. Isn't it weird how these women glom on to these prisoners? And well, I don't know, does he? I think he has a girlfriend or
I saw that online.
Richard Ramirez, the literal Night Stalker, had a wife in prison.
It's like, so weird, isn't it? What I mean, that you got to be pretty lonely to want to hook up with a prisoner, right?
Or
convicted
maybe
of terrible
you just,
things.
I was going to say, or a convicted murderer.
Yeah, right. Or maybe you just value your personal space and you want to guarantee that your boyfriend's never going to come over.
Honestly, so fair. Wait, but Katie, so we love to end on a exciting,
Are we
hopeful note.
ending? I'm having so much fun.
Oh, you're coming back. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to come back.
We saw on social media, we saw on your Instagram, someone's going to be a grandmother.
What?
Yes. There's going to be another. How about we say there's going to be another member of your family?
Yeah, no. I'm absolutely thrilled. It is a little freaky. Let's be honest. I don't know if any other people listening to this, you guys probably don't have many. I don't know how many.
No, we have grandmas, grandpas.
We have grandmas
You do?
and
We run
grandpas.
the gamut.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I think your first grandchild, it's a little bit of a head game for a second. Because I think you have to acknowledge, yes, I am old enough to have a grandchild. And by the way, my daughter Ellie is 32. It's not like she's a teenage pregnant person. And so the word is kind of freaky. Someone sent me a funny article saying how baby boomers refuse to be called granny, grandma, grandpa, whatever, and they're coming up with all these cute names because they obviously think, just don't want to accept the fact that they're getting older. But it's very exciting. Ellie is due on March 23rd. Ooh. She lives in LA, Erin. So maybe you'll see us walking around with the
LA's pretty small,
in a little carriage.
LA's pretty compact, so we'll probably see you.
Exactly. We'll see you around somewhere.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Well, Katie, do you know? Are you going to be a Gigi, a Mimi? My mom is a Mimi, an Oma.
That's cute.
Yeah, what are you going to be?
So, that's been a big subject of conversation. So I was going to be Gigi.
Okay.
And I even had a sweater embroidered with Gigi, those lingua franca sweaters.
Franca, yeah.
Which I thought would be really fun. And now I've decided I'm not Gigi, so I have to go back to them and ask them to change the I's to O's.
Well, you're going to be Go-Go?
I like that.
Into
I
it.
kind of like Go-Go. Okay, I'm stealing it from Tory Burch. I saw her at a dinner, and we were talking, and she said, I'm Go-Go. And I said, I think she has step-grandchildren. I said, that is so cute. She goes, Babe Paley was Go-Go, too. And I was like, I don't even know that much about Babe Paley, but she probably was cool. And anybody named Babe, gets some props from me. So yeah. I think I've gone from Gigi to Go-Go.
Go-Go's cool.
I love that. Well, when you come back, you need to tell us what your final verdict was on it.
Yeah.
Give us a report from the front lines of grandmotherhood.
And John, my husband is so funny. He's like, I don't know. He was like, his name is John. So I said, what about Papa John? And then that's sort of cute. And you think of pizza. And he's thinking of Pappy because he likes the bourbon. And I don't know. We'll see. I think sometimes the baby or the little person comes up with their own name for their grandparents.
My dad is Poof.
Poof?
Poof and Mimi. Poof and Mimi.
And that's so cute. Poof.
Oh my gosh. My mother was, for my daughter, my mom was Grandma Bobka for a while.
Cute.
And then she dropped the Bobka. I don't know why she's Grandma Bobka. We're not Jewish. She's never had babka before. I don't know. I think
how did that happen, Erin?
I don't know. She's a verbose child, my 2-year-old. And she's
so now she's just grandma.
Now just grandma.
Well, Grandma Bobka is a mouthful. You got to admit, right?
Yeah. I mean, her name's Juniper, and she's just now started being able to say her name. She used to call herself.
So cute.
She used to call herself Tipota. Which does not sound like...
Does she have a nickname? Is she like Junie or just Juniper?
We'll see. She's 2, so we don't know what's going to suit her long term, but I'm open to whatever. And that's kind of like that's a really fun thing, is just seeing a little tiny person discover who they are, learn how to talk, say things wrong, say things right, and give people nicknames like Go-Go, Gigi, whatever it ends up being.
I think it's so exciting. People who have grandchildren have told me the whole world falls away and you are so present. And, I was working so hard when my girls were little. And then, of course, my husband died. So I was a single mom and Ellie and Carrie were only 2 and 6 when Jay died. By the way, not to again bring some sadness into this conversation, but today is the 24th anniversary of my husband's death.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
And I think about everything he missed and what he's missing now, you know? But anyway, it's sad. I think the idea of being with a child and, you know, having a little more flexibility to my schedule, even though Ellie lives in LA, which is going to be hard since we're in New York, but I'm really looking forward to experiencing that wonderful awe of watching a child develop and learn and, you know, form their personality. So I'm really excited about it. We don't know whether she's having a boy or a girl, which is, I guess, kind of unusual. And it's been really fun to think of names and.
Okay, Katie.
Okay,
I know you got to go.
Bye, ladies. So fun being with you. Thank you again for having me.